Welcome to oursanskrit.com. This is lesson 42. In the last 41 lessons, we were looking at the grammar and usage of classical Sanskrit. In the next few lessons, we will look at Vedic Sanskrit. The term Vedic Sanskrit refers to the metrical language of the Vedic hymns and the prose of the Brāhmaṇas and the Brāhmaṇa-like portions of the various recensions of the Yajurveda and the Atharvaveda. You can clearly see the language usage changing as you go from the Rigveda to the Brāhmaṇas. I will mainly use the Rigveda and sometimes the Taittiriya Samhita and others to illustrate the points made in the lessons. The translation of the Sanskrit language is represented pictorially here. The Rigveda represents the oldest stage of the language, and the Code of Manu or the Manusmriti represents the beginning of the classical language. Then the epics, the law books, the Puranas, and then the other great works of literature like poetry, drama, etc. and also many other technical works. There has been considerable debate as to when and where Sanskrit evolved and when and where the earliest Vedic hymns are composed. I do not wish to wade into these turbulent waters, but I believe that the earliest hymns of the Rigveda were composed around 5000 to 6000 years ago. Of course, we need to remember that most of the Vedic language and productions were composed before writing was introduced to the ancient users of the language. These early productions are handed down the generations through an oral tradition, making these the oldest unbroken tradition in existence. These hymns have been handed down through the generations without a single mistake creeping in through the various passages between ear and mouth. This is due to the extraordinary lengths that the ancient poets and their culture in general went through to preserve the fidelity of the text. The text is rendered in many forms of recitation or pathas. These different forms of recitation permute and repeat the words of a text in various ways. So a word and its accent in a text is recited within various combinations with and without applying the rules of Sandhi. These extraordinary techniques guaranteed the most perfect tradition in terms of sound and unaltered word order. The most used of these various pathas is the Padapatha, which is a recitation with a pause after every word. This method suppresses sandhis and restores each word in its original intended form. So we can be sure that any word and its sound that we see in the Rig and the other Vedas are accurate as the poets intended when they made it. Vedic Sanskrit differed from classical Sanskrit in that there was more use of the middle voice, fuller use of the tenses, the modes, the infinitives, inflected participles, and genuine prepositions. And of course, all words were accented. This accent has been lost in classical Sanskrit. However, you have to note that the difference between Vedic Sanskrit and classical Sanskrit is not as great as between Old English and Modern English. There is nothing in Vedic Sanskrit that is unintelligible to a person who has learned classical Sanskrit. Please go through oursanskrit.com lesson 42 for some examples of Vedic Sanskrit. This is the end of lesson 42. In this lesson, we started looking at Vedic Sanskrit.